Oh, okay. You want to do us today?
Yeah, I'll do it. I was realizing it'd been a while since I have done the introduction.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't mind, but
No, it's good.
You know how much I like to talk.
Yeah. Okay, I'll get it started. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Belgariad and Beyond podcast. We are talking about Pawn of Prophecy, the first book in the Belgariad series. My name is Alysia, and I'm here with Sondra today, again, as always.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing, Sondra?
I'm a bit out of breath because I forgot my water bottle and I had to go down the stairs and then, had to pee because the water and then I had to run back up the stairs. So I'm ready for chapter 16.
I know, chapter 16 already. I was looking at the book as I was reading it this morning, like, dang, we're so close to the end.
Yeah. It's like that. It's deceptive though when you're reading a series. You might be close to the end, but because there's still like 4 books left to get to the end of the story, you hope that each book has sort of a satisfying conclusion. Well, especially when you're reading the books and the next one hasn't come out yet, which is the case when I first read this series. We had to wait a year for the next book to come out,
Yeah, that's the worst. That's so hard.
And
thankfully, they're all published now, so I don't have to wait.
Exactly. What's your potion like this week, darling?
Okay, so I put perfectly imperfect and sweet tonic. And like the perfectly imperfect phrase is in my head just because that I brought her up a while ago. This woman who is like what do you call those? She's a nutritionist, but she's like all like natural.
A naturopath or?
Yeah, kind of like that, like a holistic approach to all of eating and stuff. But her book just came out, a new book with a bunch of new recipes that I can't wait to get. But it's titled something about perfectly imperfect. So it was in my head. And I'm like, that actually really applies to me this week because I don't ever like associate with being perfect in any way. I don't like to. I like to be imperfect. But I've been doing a lot of writing still. I'm writing the next book in the Raven Dreams series. And so that's been like really amazing to get further into that world after so long. And then because I'd been, so engulfed in this world again, and I know, I don't know if I mentioned it on here, but a while back I decided to stop the podcast I'm doing on my own, the Story Guide podcast, because it was getting all over the place. It was like, I didn't know what the point of it was. And I didn't really like the direction it was going. So I'm like, I need to just take a break from it. But what came to me was, and I think this podcast here was kind of an inspiration too, is I decided to start doing my own recordings where I'm going to go chapter by chapter through my book, The Raven Dreams, on my podcast. But on there, I'm actually like reading each chapter and then having a small discussion about it.
I love this kind of podcasts. Well, I mean, of course I love them. I started this with you, but I love, especially when you have the internal, like the author talking about stuff, because you get all of those layers behind the creation. And I love that.
Yeah. So I have 3 episodes recorded so far, and it's been so fun. Like, part of the reason I thought of this was because I needed to reread the book to refresh myself to keep writing the series.
Yeah.
So then I was like, why not do it this way? And
That's
that way
fantastic.
It's like so
do not waste your creative juice, darling. Drip that stuff all into the potion and drink it up.
Yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. And like, I've already learned so much just from the first 3 chapters of reading it. Like, wow.
That's so
Not just
cool.
how far I've come, but like this book was a lot of the darkness in me at that time in my life. So now I'm seeing like the dark and the light contrast of myself, and it's kind of, you know, magical in its own way.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's been really cool. And then the last thing I just have to add in here is that the movie The Matrix, okay?
Yes,
like
classic for all time.
Yeah, so when it first came out, I remember Nathan was like so obsessed. We were still in high school when this came out, right?
Oh my God, I feel so old.
No. Well, I was thinking yesterday as I was watching him like 20 years ago. But what happened is when it first came out, I didn't understand. I was a different person then. I didn't care about that stuff. I'm like, that movie's too dark. It's too sci-fi. I don't want anything to do with it.
Oh my God, you're gorgeous.
So the last 2 weeks, though, there's been this reoccurrence of this movie has been coming up, whether it's in a podcast I'm listening to, a book I'm reading. It's either a direct reference or they're talking about the Matrix, or it's something that has to do with the same storyline of the Matrix is being brought up. And so I'm like, all right, I get it. I need to watch the movie. So yesterday I watched it for the first time in like a decade.
Oh,
just me by myself. And like, it was amazing. Like I said, I'm such a different person that why didn't I like this movie when I was 15
you weren't ready
years old?
you weren't ready for the deep stuff.
Yeah. And so it was really cool to watch it. And I did get what I needed to get from it.
That's cool.
It was another just awesome thing to go through, as simple as it is, right? But it was amazing.
Well, you know, life, what's simple, what's not, who knows? Oh, that's very cool.
Yep.
Oh, so now I have an idea for another podcast. Dang it. Stop it. I've got enough to do. Right.
Too many ideas.
So my potion this week, the curse of the creativist.
Exactly.
Oh, my potion this week. So, not that I'm a beer drinker, but my potion is a fortifying flagon of ale. And it's dark and rich and earthy with a touch of apple.
That sounds good. I don't drink ale
either. It does actually sound really good.
Or beer.
Because I feel so centered this week. I've had some profound shifts. And it's not been like explosions. It's just been really deep settling into the earth. I feel so centered, and all of the things I'm doing, the decisions I'm making, the way I'm approaching my work and relationships and self-inquiry is just really grounded with a deep, deep understanding of what my why is. And that's not to say that my why won't change. The reasons I do things have changed my whole life, will change for the rest of my life. It's how we live our lives. It's just the natural thing that happens, because I'm not the same person I was yesterday. And so the why, the reason I do things will naturally change, but that's okay. I don't feel like I need to grasp onto a particular way of being. And it's okay that my reasons for things change. It doesn't mean I'm changeable. It doesn't mean I'm fickle. It doesn't mean I can't stick to something. It feels really grounded and powerful. Like I understand why I'm doing this thing right now. I understand the purpose, and that's enough.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I've tried to talk about it, like really talk about it.
So do you feel comfortable sharing what this why is on here?
It's not that I don't feel comfortable, it's that I haven't, it's good that you ask that question, because I just haven't found the way to express it yet. So the work I'm doing, I'm starting to get more into teaching. Teaching specifically therapeutic guided meditation. Massage. I taught massage, did massage for a long, long time. But moving into, you know, the journeying that I do, the guided meditations that I have done for, you know, decades, 2 decades. So I'm starting to teach that. And I'm having more classes more often, like live online gatherings where I take people through a journey. And so I'm going to start teaching people how to do what I do. And because I have so much going on, Like, you know how much I've got going on. You know how much I've got going on. It's like all of a sudden, there are certain projects in the Goddess Kindled universe that are coalescing into the pillars.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else is starting to fall away. And I'm not trying to cling to every little thing, every little connection, every little contact, every little bit of advice, every little idea that I have. The curse of the creativist, as I said.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I can feel these pillars around me that are the reasons why I started this business. I founded the company, and I understand why it's a publishing company and why it's not a holistic therapies company. You know, I am a holistic therapist. That's something that I do and have done for a really long time. I'm very good at it. I'm a life coach. I'm a body worker. all of these things that I do. But I founded a publishing company because I am a publisher. I put creations out into the world for people to understand themselves better. And I do that from the place of having all of this wisdom and knowledge. And I feel okay saying that out loud now. And that's what I mean about knowing what my why is. I understand where I am. I'm okay with knowing what I know. And I'm comfortable with sharing that openly with whoever comes across my path that is interested.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's boasting. I don't feel like it's showing off. I don't feel like I'm trying to sell anybody. And they have been my big fears all for such a long time. You know, since I was a young teenager, my very cool cousins, and it was like, don't be a big note. That was like the worst thing that you could possibly be. Don't be a big note. It means don't show off, you know?
Yeah.
And so I've had that for such a long time. And combine that with not feeling incredibly supported in doing the creative things that I wanted to do and the alternative therapies path career that I've wanted to take. Well, I've never been very supported in that. And now I am. And so I'm in this really safe, grounded space that I've been able to explore all this stuff, discover exactly why I do it, and really acknowledge how much shit I really know. And the fact that I'm a pretty freaking good teacher. Like I communicate well. I'm comfortable talking to people. Although it appears not so much today. As a coughing fit. I gotta do it again.
It's okay. Take a break if you need to take a break.
Maybe it's the universe telling me it's time to shut up about all of this shit that I know and I want to share.
No. Well, I can add to this, like saying that everything listening to you can feel like it's so natural for you to just say it as it is and it makes sense. And it's like you can feel and hear the groundedness in everything that you're saying, you know? And I think it's important. Like I get that whole being afraid to like sell or be that person, to be feeling like you have to sell people, which is exactly why I stopped doing what I was doing, because it felt just like that. And so it is, I think, first you need to figure out exactly what it is, because when you find it, it's not going to at all feel like you're selling anything. People are just going to come to you and it's going to happen. And I think that's exactly where you're at right now. And so that's the magic of it. And, you know, it's just a awesome and beautiful thing. So,
yeah. So, wow. So I'm having, my throat's been kind of acting up. Like it's almost like it's like a hot, rough throat. Like I would be getting sick, but I'm not sick. And I feel like my voice is deeper. It's trying to be deeper. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but you know, there we go.
The throat is the place of expression, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. And I have been doing a bit of energy work on my throat. So it's not such a big surprise after all. So
sound like it.
I'll keep drinking my ale.
Yeah.
And let you do the.
It's clearing. You're clearing the gunk out.
I'm
Make
totally.
room.
I went to. Oh, it was part of a meditation today, and the person who was guiding it went up through the chakras, and each chakra was like a fan spinning, and just spinning off all of the grot and the debris and the like, till it was this beautiful glowing spinning fan of light.
Yeah.
And my throat was a really different color to the color that I usually see when I'm looking at my throat chakra. So if I'm looking at my light body, it's usually quite a deep blue, but this is like a vibrant, almost electric blue. It was really interesting. So there we go. Right into the happening straight away. Yeah. So there we go. So I'm going to stop talking now, if that's at all possible.
Yeah. Let's give your voice a break, and I'll go into Garion's view. We can talk about this chapter.
Great. Off you go.
All right, so chapter 16. I think this one was like a super light chapter, which we'll get into. But to sum it up, we see at the beginning Garion, he's like mending from his little, I don't know if it was little, but his boar incidents.
The boar incident.
So he's, getting visited by the kings and the queens that are around, and he's feeling very pampered and enjoying his day until Wolf and Aunt Pole kind of bring him down very quickly at the end of the day. And then we move right into the next day, and since they're holding another meeting, and even Dernick is invited this time, so Garion's literally like left out. He decides to just wander around like he does, and he finds some tracks, starts following them because he senses there's something dangerous going on, and finds the man in the green cloak and figures out this guy is like eavesdropping on the meeting. From where he's at, you can hear the meeting happening, so he overhears everything too. And then he finally decides at the end of this chapter he's gonna tell somebody everything he knows, and he decides to go see Beric for that.
Yep. End of chapter.
So it was a really short chapter, but it was really I think it had a good amount of suspense.
Yep. I agree. I love the start where Garion's in bed and he's all laid up because of the boar.
Yeah.
All of his injuries. And the picture that I have in my head of Paul's face during this whole thing, like I just see her sitting there, and is she sewing? She often sits and just stitches like men's.
I didn't catch it that she was sewing.
Yeah, she's sewing by the fire. She often does that. That's one of the things she does. And I just see her there like with this really calm, placid face, stitching away while all of the kings and queens come in and visit and pet and pamper and ooh and ah and tell Garion how courageous he is. And then right at the end, Mr. Wolf comes in. At the end of the day, the last visitor of the day comes in, and he's so like, just like, oh yeah, g'day, and yes, it's all very splendid. Yeah, why didn't you get out of the road? That kind of would make sense.
Yeah. He's really contradicting everything that all the others have just filled Garion with. Yeah, in my head, Aunt Pol's like sitting there, like suppressing a grin, like you do when you're a mum and you shouldn't be smiling at something. While basically Mr. Wolf takes Garion right down, tells him he's basically a bit of an idiot for not getting out of the way, asks him up. And there might be some stuff in here, some references that you didn't quite understand, so do let me know. But Mr. Wolf says, Garion, you've been behaving quite horrendish lately. The Arryns are the ones who, the very warlike people, are the ones that are on the tapestries and in all the armour. Notoriously ready to fight, to jump into a fight.
And Mr. Wolf asks Aunt Pol, you sure you didn't drop him on his head when he was a baby?
Yeah. That's the moment her smile finally breaks free. Yeah, she can't hold it back anymore. But she still doesn't say anything. So Mr. Wolf is just kind of like, all right, I'm going to go. See you later. And try to think about what I said.
Yeah, it's so good. Paul's like, thanks for visiting, Father.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, anytime. Like, the little unspoken agreements that adults have about the behavior of their children.
Right, exactly. But then moving into the moment after Mr. Wolf has left, like, Aunt Pol is like her typical self for a bit here, I think. But, Garion's, saying, he just spoiled my day. Like, what a jerk. But she's really kind of loving here in her the way she responds to him, which usually she seems to come at him really stern and like with a lot of sarcasm. But she seems to have dropped all that. And maybe it has to do with the fact that he was injured so badly.
Yeah, he could really have been killed.
Mm-hmm. And so that's in her mind of like, wow, I need to rethink some things maybe.
And maybe there is in the back of, just this subtle shift into treating him more as a reasonable adult who can listen to reasonable words like, it's well and good to be brave, my Garion. It's like, she's really beautiful. It's a beautiful, very intimate scene. After they get all past all the ruffled feathers, Garion's out of joint nose, and the fact that he's a bit pouty and says, I'm not hungry, I don't want to eat. And Aunt Pol's like, oh, I better mix you a tonic then.
Yeah. And he changes his mind, right?
Very quickly. But, and then she falls, all of that sort of bullshit falls away. And she's just really serious. It's all well and good to be brave, but you just have to start thinking before you act.
Yeah. And that's the embrace that she gives him, I think, says a lot of where she's at right now. That she's not the one that seems like that kind of a loving mother figure in that way. But she doesn't care at this point, like lets her guard down and just embraces him. And
it does seem like, she's trying to, be stoic through all of this stuff, maybe because she has such a bigger understanding of what's going on or what might happen next.
Yeah, so that was just a really nice scene between them.
Beautiful.
It's different than what we usually see.
And I think the way that she treated him was much more effective and cracked through all of his rubbish.
Yeah, because we see him
than anything else she could have done.
Yeah, because he even in his like thought process acknowledges that even though they're not related by blood, that they can still be, and that made him feel a lot better about the whole situation since he discovered who she was, right?
Yeah. So I guess it is showing an increasing level of maturity in Garion, where in the same moment he can have this little tantrumy kind of thing, and in the next moment be shifted into something that's a much more mature kind of mindset.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's okay. And then we get to the next day, and he goes to he's still a bit achy. And he heads off to the main hall with Dernick. This is when the Earl of Saline comes up and asks Dernick to join them in the meeting chamber, and Dernick's, a bit surprised.
So they just invite Dernick in, and he goes, basically they just take him away pretty quickly. And so Garion's sitting alone, wounded by being excluded. And, and this is where it's actually stated that his self-esteem is very tender at this age, He like sulks away and decides he wants to go visit his boar.
Because at least the boar took him seriously.
Yeah. But when he gets in there and he's looking at it, he's like, this doesn't seem as big as I thought it was. And he almost feels a little bit even more defeated at that point, because it's like, wow.
This is like one of my favorite lines in the whole series. So he's gone into the cooling room, which has got ice and all the meat's hung there. And the text goes, one could, however, spend only so much time in the company of a dead pig without becoming depressed.
Yeah, that's very true. And I don't see how you can be around anything dead and not become depressed.
So it didn't seem nearly as impressive, and the tusks were big, but they didn't seem quite so dreadful. And he was getting stiff, so off he went.
Yeah, and this is where we get like a little touch on Barrick, that he's like, I would go and visit Barrick, except he's not answering his door for anyone, not even his.
Yeah, so this is
So
an important story point which will get fleshed out.
yeah, I think we just know, reminding us of what happened to him. Obviously, it's really, really bothering him at some deep, deep level. He doesn't even want to see anybody.
Yeah. So the end of the last chapter was Aunt Pol acknowledging that something had happened, and him leaving Garion's room and Garion falling into unconsciousness on the night that he was injured. So this is the next mention of him. You know, he's locked himself away and he's not even seeing his wife.
Right. So Garion moves on and goes around through other parts of the castle, right? The second floor corridors of the ruin.
Yeah, so this is such a it conjures up such a great picture, like some kind of ancient labyrinth with some walls fallen down and some roofs open to the elements, and like an ancient ruin, but a ruin that is still inhabited in some parts. I
know. It's just like randomly throughout the roofs caved in, so there's snow all over the ground, and it's there that Garion notices like the footprints in the snow.
So there's something like a corridor totally abandoned. Its roof had fallen in centuries ago. So he finds the footprints, and he thinks first of all that they might be his. But then he sees that they're so much bigger than his feet, and he decides to follow them. Yeah,
because instantly the green cloaked man and Ashrak, the fact that Ashrak, the Murgo, is somewhere here, that he's like, and whoever this flaxen haired man is, I still can't figure out who he's supposed to be.
Yeah, when I first read this, I'm not surprised that it feels a bit weird. Like almost every time I read it, I go, oh yeah, that's just, he seems weird, like he doesn't quite fit in the story, but he's important to the story. Like maybe it's, I don't know, some sort of plot device. But the flaxen-haired nobleman. So the three bad guys that we have in this part of the story are the man in the green cloak, Ashrak the Murgo, and the flaxen-haired nobleman. And they're the three who met in the woods.
Right. Yeah.
And the flaxen-haired nobleman was telling the man in the green cloak that he needed to get close enough to hear what everyone was talking about, and he was relieved to know that there was a boy in the party. So
yeah,
Garion's important there somehow, but the importance was that Ashrak the Murgo wanted to know that Garion was there.
So Garion feels inclined, of course, to follow these footsteps, see where they're going, if he can find who they're for. But then the snow like ends, and it's under a roofed part of the castle now that he's trying to track this guy.
Oh, but there's a part here. He feels a little bit naked with his little tiny dagger. So he goes back into one of the rooms and pulls his ancient rusty sword off the wall.
That's right. Extra dangerous because it's rusty. You don't want to get stuck with the rusty sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then he has trouble like following the tracks in the dust, but he sees the movement and in the green cloak, right? The flicker of green. So he's like, I know who it is now. So he's kind of just following him, trying to be really sneaky. He seems to be pretty good at being stealthy in the dark and
especially
not being
considering
seen.
He's just finished grunting and groaning and sweating because his ribs are aching, and he had to crouch down and to look at the floor really closely. The dust was disturbed, and now he's turned into this little kitty paws creature, able to scout along with, in the shadows.
That is funny. I didn't even think of it that way, but yeah, it's almost like a 180 shift where he's like, switch.
But that's so true of someone who's completely caught up in an adventure. Or for me anyway, and I think that's doubly true for a young person.
Yeah, as soon as he senses the there's something actually going on. I got to get on my game. You can easily, I guess, flip the switch on that and become what you need to be in that moment.
Absolutely. And so he almost runs into the guy in the green cloak. That's how close he gets to him. The only thing that stops him is that he hears the Earl of Selene really loudly, and it stops him just in time, and he can go back and find a little hidey hole.
Yeah, that part threw me off at first because I'm like, hold on. The green cloak guy is talking to the Earl of Selene, right? Yeah. And I think that was on purpose.
Yeah.
And then you hear Belgarath's name and you're like, no, Belgarath wouldn't be talking to the guy in the green cloak. No. And then you realize, oh, they're just overhearing the conversation.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can imagine these big corridors, big cracks. It's nothing sealed. If you got in the right position around the room that they were all having the meeting in, you could hear easily.
So that's what they're doing. Then Garion and the man in the green cloak are eavesdropping on this conversation.
Yep.
Which you probably have better details about, but it seems like they're...
Yep. You tell me what your impression of it was, and I will gather myself and hopefully not have another coughing fit.
Sounds good. They're talking about this person they're following, and obviously the orb, which is what I assume this person's carrying, and that they're trying to decide if this person is going to use this weapon for himself or to awaken the enemy. And Silk has his opinion on all of that. He's the one that thinks that he might use the thing for himself, and it just seems like they're kind of in disagreement on why he actually stole it. So
who do you think the enemy is when they say they awaken the enemy? He's referred to, the enemy is referred to a couple of different ways here. The enemy, I think there's also the accursed one.
I forgot the name of the proper name, but it's
also I can't remember. But who do you think they're referring to?
Oh, I'm blanking the name. It starts with a T.
Oh, okay, Torak.
Torak.
Yeah. So they're talking about Torak. So looking at it, knowing that, and then listening to them have this conversation, they're talking about a god.
Yeah.
So, they're talking about the possibility of the apostate who has stolen this power and might keep it for himself, but might deliver it up to Torak, or might deliver it up to the Gorolum high priest so that he can awaken the god of the Angarax. So
the apostate is Asherak. Is that right? No. So Asherak and this person that's got the orb is two different people.
They are.
Okay, it's good.
So, and we know that because, I'm not giving away any spoilers, we know that because Asherak is there in Valarlorn somewhere. The person they're following is not in Valarlorn. That is the person that has the thing that Belgarath can follow the trail of, and that's where they were going to. They just picked up the trail and they were heading to keep following the trail when they got pulled to Valarlorn. So I guess at this point we don't know if it's Asherak. I suppose Asherak could be because he was in that other place as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
So he's been following them along the whole. So he's been pretty close the whole time. So that being the case, if he had the thing that they were looking for, Belgarath would have picked it up. He would have sensed it, I imagine.
Yeah, he would have been too close to it.
So if this apostate was Asherak, and Asherak had the power that has been stolen, it would have been close enough for Belgarath to pick it up.
Yeah.
And he didn't, so that's my logic to say that Asherak is not the apostate.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, because that's the first time the term apostate has been used, right?
Yeah, so it just means...
Because before they weren't referring to him in a proper term.
Well, they haven't ever said his name.
Right.
And the reason that they gave for not saying his name was because he could pick it out. He could hear it across distance because he's some kind of, he has some kind of power. Hang on, I'm just Googling. Because we can do that. I have a computer in front of me. Tippy tap, tap, tap. So an apostate is a person who renounces a religious or political belief or principle. So the fact that, is it Belgariad that calls him the apostate?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so there seems to be some sort of personal thing going on there, the apostate who's renounced. So, okay, so maybe he's calling him that because he is no longer a servant of Torak. Maybe he turned away from Torak and wants this thing for himself, and that's why he's not going to deliver it up to the Grolim high priest.
Yeah. It looks like it's actually Chohag that calls him the apostate first.
Ah, interesting. Chohag's a really interesting character.
So that's probably because that's how he views him, right? He views him as no, he's doing this all for himself. He's not going to take it to
That's exactly, of course, that's exactly why Chohag says it. He's got the power in his hands now.
Right.
Oh, and he's questioning Belgarath to know if it's possible that he could awaken Torak. And Musul says, yes, the power is there. But he might be afraid to use it. That's how powerful this thing is. You know, if it's not used properly, even when Torak used it, it split the earth and it burned his face off. So, you know, I guess you got to be pretty powerful to use it. If that's what it does to a god, a normal old sorcerer would have to be pretty fucking scared to pick it up and start wielding it.
Yeah. And even Silk is under the impression he thinks that this guy's going to use it for himself, to raise himself as king in the lands of the Angrax, is what he says. I mean, it seems like Belgarath might be, in his own opinion, that he's actually taking it to somebody else.
Okay, so everyone else thinks that he'll keep it for himself. Garrett and Belgarath thinks he's going to take it to the Grolim high priest.
Yeah, because then the other king Anheg says...
King Anheg. So he's the Churk king.
Okay, so he says, but no matter what, whether it's the apostate or the accursed one, who eventually raises that power, the Angrax will follow and they'll come west.
That's true. He does say that. So, and then they start talking about war starting because the Angrax will follow whoever has this power. And they talk about, you know, should they inform the Tornedrans or the Ulgos? And they decide that no, they don't want to do that yet because Aunt Pol and Belgarath say that they need to move across those countries and they don't want the countries mobilizing for war because it'll just get in their way.
Yeah.
And so they'll talk to, you know, the people, the Emperor of Tornedra and the Arans, the king and the queen, you know, when they get there so that they're not impeded in their journey. And then what do you think about the way that King Fulrak talks about the war and Dernick's response?
Yeah, so King Fulrak is the king of Sindaria.
Yeah.
And he goes into his concerns that Sindaria is going to be the place they're going to hit first to use it as like a camp out, you know, and destroy everyone in Sindaria first, and that they're just farmers and tradesmen, so they'll easily be defeated. Dernick kind of opposes that, and not even in any rude way or anything. He's I
love the way he's just so he stands up and just ends in that really simple, solid honesty, you know, that respectful kind of honesty that he has about him all the time.
Yeah, he's very much like the Ned Stark of this story, I think.
Ned Stark. You're talking about Song of Ice and Fire again?
Yeah.
No more spoilers, you.
Oh, I'm not spoiling anything. Okay. That was in season 1.
Okay, well, I'm just saying. I might read it if the dude doesn't die.
Okay, sounds good. I will keep my mouth shut.
No,
but I just mean like the honesty.
Yeah.
of this character is that's Ned Stark. He's just such an honest person. Like, you can't ever really be mad at him because he's just being honest, and he's always respectful about it. And that's how Dernick is. And I think, though, that he kind of, the king, though, King Florak almost seems like whiplashed by himself, in that, like, wow, have I really been a king that long that I've forgotten what it's like?
He does it beautifully, though. He becomes humble, and he acknowledges, his, I don't know, undervaluing his own people. He completely acknowledges it.
Yeah, that says a lot about him as a king too.
I think so. And so the point was, that they're remembering the last battle. The last final battle was in front of Vomimbra, which is where all the people in the armor, like the knights on the horses, that's their city. And they won't make the same mistake again. They'll fall on Sindaria first. And so Dernick says, we can burn all the food. Won't be much left if we burn it. And then Chohag's son Hetar, what he says about okay, you go.
Yeah, he brings up the fact that there's only a few passes leading into Sindaria, and if they time a few avalanches just right, they can not only block passage into it, but they could probably actually trap the Ingrax in these passages, and then they can't go anywhere. And
the very very clever turn of phrase that Silk has, he suggests that Dernick can put his incendiary impulses to a better use and burn some mangoes instead.
Instead of turnips.
Since Torak likes the smell of burning flesh so much, let's light him up.
Yeah.
So they all thought that was very good.
Yeah, and then this is when it's, Garion's interrupted because somebody's approaching him and he needs to hide.
Yeah, so he sort of just falls back into the shadows. He doesn't actually move. It sounds like he's pretty close to the guy in the green cloak, because he sort of just has time to pull back, and the only reason he's not spotted is because the guy in the green cloak is running away from the approaching footsteps and looking over his shoulder away from Garion as he runs past Garion. So
he manages to stay hidden and nobody finds him. So this is, though, when he's had, he's overheard all of this, and he's had such a close call, I think, with the man in the green cloak seeing him. He's like, finally, I need to tell somebody about this. Somebody who of power who people will listen to when he tells them,
Yeah, and he decides on Barrack. But I mean, it's not just the fact that I think he almost got caught by the man in the green cloak, but what he's overheard, like, that's going to be blowing his fucking mind.
Yeah, right. That's a big part of it. And I think he's starting to feel the real danger that's so close, that it's not far off in the distance anymore. It's like right on their doorstep, like they're heading right into it. So,
and that's the end of the chapter. So he decides to go and get Barrack, and he's walking towards Barrack's chamber, and that's the end of the chapter.
Right. Good chapter.
Yeah. So I'm so sorry if it feels like it's chopping in and out. It's because I keep pausing because I'm coughing my freaking lungs out.
No, you can't tell, honestly, on our end.
Good.
So you can just edit those parts, and now I'm going to cough.
That's okay. So, but when I pause, hang on, I'm going to pause as well. So we're both coughing. Sorry, I'm transmitting coughing across the world via the internet.
Yeah.
No, you're doing it. But the like when I'm paused, like I mute my microphone so that I can cough and splutter, and I can't hear what you're saying. So when I come back on, I'm like, I'll just nod and like do the audio equivalent of smile and nod, I'm not quite sure what you said.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully the conversation sounds like fairly normal one.
That's fine. Yeah, so you pause it, but it still records what I'm saying, or not?
Oh yeah, it still record. Oh, I just had a total panic because I looked up at the display and I saw the pause and the stop button, and like Oh, fuck. Don't tell me that we've just done that whole thing and it's not recording, but it says recording and the little red light is blinking. So,
yeah, mine has the recording on there.
okay. Dang it. I don't want to do that again.
I know. We'll see. If we have to, we have to.
Yeah, but it's so weird. Like every chapter, before we get on, I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to say. What the hell am I going to say? And we managed to fill up a whole hour. So what do I know?
Yeah. I think we got it covered. We always find something to talk about.
Yes, we're just chatterboxes. Know all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Magic.
So,
Magic
for you is what?
So the magic for me. Clear my throat. So I've gone for the big magic this time. The power, this thing that's been stolen in the apostate's hands, and the possibility that he might revive the accursed one. So the possibility that this power that this dude's stolen can resurrect a god. That's pretty big magic, and I just thought I'd pick that one.
Yeah, I think that's definitely some big magic.
But I'm curious about yours, because I'm just looking at the note that you made. I'm like, oh, I like it, but I want to know more.
No, I just felt when the scene was being described with Garion walking through these corridors, and then some of the roofs are collapsed in the walls, and there's like thick snow fallen on the ground in some places. Like, I just got this really awesome visual, and it seemed like such a magical scene. Like, again, I think I was reminded of, there's one shot in Game of Thrones where in King's Landing, like in the throne room, the roof has caved in and the snow is falling to the ground and you see the throne, and it just kind of took me back there. And also almost like a Lion Witch in the Wardrobe kind of feel, with like the how the snow is sometimes indoors.
That's such a great
Yeah.
Just that whole like walking. Didn't you? And when you were young, like, did you know the story when you were young? Did you ever climb into your wardrobe, or like just kind of maybe hope out of in the back of your mind, I wonder if there's actually something back here? I totally did.
Well, I didn't have a wardrobe, unfortunately. I just had a normal closet, and I didn't do it in my closet. But I did a lot of other stuff that was similar, though, to imagining like entering this place that was a whole other world.
Yeah.
So I get it. But yeah, that stuff just felt like magic to me, reading that little scene there. That's why I put it in.
Okay, personal insight, a bit of real life relating now.
Yep.
So when he's exploring, again with the exploring, when I was little, we lived in the bush, and next door to our house was another house, which was originally where my Nana and her mum and dad, my great Nana and great pop, lived. And the house had been abandoned for a really long time. Like, I can remember my great Nana Cook was like 96 or something when she died. But she was ancient when I knew her. Ancient. Paper soft, fine skin, and she was kind of amazing. But this house, like, so I would go exploring by myself. Like, I probably shouldn't have, but that's just the life we had. Like, we would just go off and go exploring, go wandering, and had all this space. It's not like we had a house right next door. We lived in the bush.
Yeah.
And I can remember looking through the windows at all of this memories of another life, like old shoes, a random old shoe, like old style kind of heeled boot, little tiny women's boot on the floor, and all this other stuff. And I can remember I've been trying to remember whether I actually got into the house, because I really tried, or whether I didn't. And like thinking about it now, it's so silly because like snakes and stuff out there, but so like, and I wonder if it's still there. I bet it is. I bet it is all still there.
Yeah, untouched. Nobody's gone in there yet.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool experience, especially as a child, to be able, whether you get in or not, just the imagination that comes with that.
Yeah, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Mine's kind of similar because it's from the same like part of Garion exploring. And I just remember like having to wait a lot when I was younger usually it was for my mom, if she had appointments or stuff. Like back then it was when Weight Watchers was really big here, and like you had to actually go in and attend for an hour or something, and she would let me and my cousin, because he was kind of like my brother growing up at the time. He was with us a lot because his mom was raising him alone and she was working, and so we watched him a lot. And so it would just be us like hanging out outside this building, and you know, there was these really tall bushes that we could crawl under. And so we would literally be crawling through, like pretending that we were, I don't know, on the hunt for something or on the run or whatever it was. And
that's
so
very cool.
Just kind of like the same thing. Just using your imagination when you're bored. Back then when you were bored, there was no electronics, and you had to literally use your imagination to entertain yourself. So
and of course our kids won't know what that's like they won't miss it because they won't know what they're missing, but like they'll have other adventures in other ways.
I miss it sometimes, like watching them, how they're growing up makes me miss it for them, I think.
But I mean, I still do stuff like that. Like my girlfriend and I don't go out as often as I could, but she goes out into the bush all the time, and she takes all the deer trails, and she goes off the beaten track. She's taught me how to shapeshift and become invisible in the middle of the forest when there are other people walking by, and so we still play, we still do all those things. It's just now we appreciate the power in it, and it's not just it's still fun, but it's not just fun, you know.
Right. It feels more real than just imaginary.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna cough again. Friggity frack.
It's just one of those days. All the throat work.
Yeah, really.
Once you get through it, I think you're gonna feel this like immense clearing like nothing else.
I hope so. Oh, I wonder if it's because I have the book I chose for Prophecy Speaks today. I wonder if that sort of contravenes all of that stuff I was saying about my potion and feeling really grounded and being okay about just putting myself out there now.
Yeah, I saw your book. It's all coming together for you. It's all falling into place. And this book, I think, was a lot to do with it for you.
You know what? My throat feels better all of a sudden. Not completely better, but holy shit. Rightio. So, Prophecy Speaks.
So what is your book, Sondra?
The book I'm using this week for Prophecy Speaks is Embodying Earth. Embodying Earth by Sondra Ann Turnbull.
And who might that be?
Well, that would be your podcast partner, the amazing and talented.
The one and only.
So I have in my hands the proof copy of the paperback.
I saw you do the opening. Oh, it looks really awesome.
It looks, I'm so happy with it. So I did a little bit of tweaking to the cover, actually. The interior looks beautiful. Did a little bit of tweaking of the cover, and that's off now, doing all of its final approvals. And so the next time you hear me talk about it, it will be for sale.
Yay.
At a super, super special release price. The lowest that I can put it for everyone. Okay, so I'm going to ask about this throat thing. About this leveling up, this shifting, this shedding. That seems to be happening, and just a little bit of direction with that would be great. Kicking off our shoes is the thing we do only after walking through the front door after a long day at work, at school, at wherever the busy place you were. Even the time we take to go into the forest or park is spent shod by sturdy hiking boots or rubber-soled sneakers. Being permanently insulated from the power source that regulates and calibrates the equipment that supports our lives isn't logical. It's no wonder there are parts of us that feel like they are short-circuiting all the time. They are. There is an intimate embrace awaiting your presence. The earth herself constantly bears all for you. She holds nothing back, and if you take the time to listen, she'll tell you all her secrets, answer any question you ask, accept your deepest pain and transform it into wisdom. Yeah, it's been a really long time since I was barefoot on the earth, actually. So maybe this is the short circuit that I just need to really get out there and plug back in and release.
Yeah, seems like it for sure. Nice.
So there you go.
It's nice. And get the healing that you need.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, what are you reading from this week?
I literally just went to my bookshelf. I'm like, what seems like it's calling out to me? And then as soon as I had that thought, my eyes landed on this book, so I pulled it out. Mm-hmm. It's On Writing by Stephen King. And I think it was actually, because of all the writing I've been refocusing on, this is an ideal book for me right now. My intention, I think, for, restarting my podcast, that's kind of all aligning with my path now as purely as an author, as a novelist. And I guess the intention for that is, I don't know. I don't even want to ask, am I really on the right path? Because then that's like...
Why don't you want to ask that?
I don't know, because then I feel like I'm not believing.
No, you can ask whatever you want. You're telling me that it feels like you're not believing when you're asking a question and then opening a book to get an answer. That's not believing?
Okay.
Yeah. So you couldn't all see my face there, but I had an incredulous look on my face.
Okay, so yeah, this is really and truly the right path that I'm finally feeling, because I feel the flow. So is it, oh, my dog smells. Is it the the right path? She just came over and like, wow, woof. What is that going on? Okay, so here it is. Talent renders the whole idea of rehearsal meaningless. When you find something at which you are talented, you do it, whatever it is, until your fingers bleed or your eyes are ready to fall out of your head. Even when no one is listening or reading or watching, every outing is a bravura performance because you as the creator are happy, perhaps even ecstatic.
That's perfect. That's so fucking perfect.
It totally is. Yeah.
I'm just going to put explicit on this episode because I've been swearing my freaking head off.
That is exactly an answer right there. Yes. The answer is yes, you are.
The answer is yes, you are. That's very cool. Okay.
I want to reread that book. I loved that book.
That's another book I haven't read.
It's so good. Because he's all about how I'm always talking about very openly, like writing your own life into your fiction. He literally goes from the beginning of his writing career and explains how everything he went through went into his books.
Really? Oh, yeah. I'm much more inspired to read it now.
Yeah, it's so good. And he's so open about his drug addiction and his marriage was almost falling apart to divorce.
Okay.
His time as a father and how that was a struggle.
Oh, now I do want to read it.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right. My prediction.
Prediction. What's the next thing we do? I'm like, I have no idea. My brain's been cut to pieces.
Almost done.
Okay.
Almost done.
Okay.
So last week, my prediction was that Garion was going to tell someone about Barrick, like what he saw, like the Barrick was shifting into a bear, and that we would learn why Barrick is this way and how it's tied to his doom. So that was way off.
Yep, we didn't do that at all.
No.
So give us your prediction for this week.
This week I put that because Garion is about to go talk to Barrick, I think that they're going to exchange, because Garion's going to be giving him some real honesty. I think that Barrick might open up a bit and give Garion some honesty about what's going on with him. And that's finally some action going to be taken against this man in the green cloak, because Garion's going to be like, hey, there's this dude. You guys need to do something.
Okay, so we shall see how accurate you are next week.
Yep.
Hashtag shit.
I didn't.
Coughing.
Coughing won't stop me.
Coughing won't stop me. There we go. Done. Okay, darling listeners, thank you so much. If you're still here at the end of the show, please head over to social media and use the hashtag coughing won't stop me to talk about this episode specifically, or just to say, hey, we'd really love it if you take the dare, take the chance, and do your own piece of prophecy. Share your experience with us. Head over to if you go to the website, Belgariad and beyond.goddesskindled.com, you'll find all of the ways to connect with us there. But we're also on Instagram. That's where Alysia likes to hang out. She collates our gallery over there. And that's at Belgariad and Beyond on Instagram, and also on Facebook. If you search up Belgariad and Beyond on Facebook, you'll find our Facebook page. And we still don't have 100 likes, but as soon as we get to 100 likes, I'm going to create a private group where we can geek out all over the place about all the things. And that's very exciting.
Yeah, there's nothing better than that.
But it's not happening until I get 100 people like
I know.
the page.
We're so close, guys. Like, I think we have 88 or 89 people.
Yeah. But it's
So
been
close.
sitting there for ages. So tell your friends, people. Tell your friends how cool this is. And get them to go over to the Facebook page and freaking like it.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Oh, do the review thing. You say that thing.
Yeah. On iTunes, you can leave a review. You can even just click how many stars. You don't even have to write anything, and just submit that, and it'll help boost us up the more, 4 or 5 star reviews or ratings that we can get.
It'll help other people find our podcast. And if you love it and you're here listening to us chatter about where to find us and how to love us, then you really love us. So go and review us. And you can review every episode. Just saying.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
There you go. Little tip.
I always just do it once for each podcast.
Can do it for every episode of the podcast if
Wow.
you are so inclined. I wonder what that would do. Maybe we'll suddenly be the best and brightest on iTunes, and everyone will follow us and we'll be famous.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That would be fun.
Not really.
That's the goal. Holy shit. No, it's really not.
No, we are here purely for our love of storytelling and fiction and each other.
Oh, this is so much fun. Love you.
Yes. Have an amazing week, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Okay, that's us.
Cool.
Oh, bloody hell.